The clinking of silverware was the only sound at the table when Dad asked the question that froze my entire body. "So, Sandra," he said, cutting into his steak like he hadn't just dropped a bomb. "Did the down payment help you settle into your new house?" I looked up. My fork hovered halfway to my mouth. "The what down payment?" I asked slowly. For a second, nobody spoke. The air in the dining room grew thick, like we were all breathing through syrup. Dad's brows furrowed. He looked from me to Mom, then back to me. "The $40,000 I gave your mother to give you last summer," he said, confusion creeping into his voice. "For your house in Austin. Didn't it help with the down payment?" My stomach dropped. My heart thudded so loud I could hear it in my ears. I turned to Mom. She froze, knife and fork still in her hands, her face pale like someone had just unplugged all the color from her skin. "Mom?" I whispered. She didn't answer. Dad's voice grew harder. "Linda, what's going on?" And that was the exact moment my world stopped spinning. "If you're wondering how we got here, how a single dinner turned into a nightmare that would tear open secrets I never imagined, let me take you back to how it all began. It started 7 months ago, when I found the perfect house. It wasn't much. A small, cozy 3-bedroom home on the edge of Austin, with an old oak tree in front and a porch swing that squeaked when the wind blew. It was my dream house. The kind of place I'd promised myself I'd buy before I turned 35. Only problem? I didn't have enough for the down payment. I'd been saving for years, juggling my job as a dental hygienist, a side gig as a weekend photographer, and even renting out my old apartment to scrape together what I could. But I was still short, about $30,000 short, Mom knew. She always knew everything. When I told her about the house, she sounded so excited. "Oh, honey, your father and I will figure something out," she said, her voice sweet and soft over the phone. "Don't you worry about a thing." That night, she texted me a heart emoji and said she'd talk to Dad. I didn't think much of it then. Mom handled all the family stuff. Dad worked long hours as an accountant and hated emotional conversations. She was always the bridge between us, but if only I knew what she really meant by "don't worry." 3 weeks later, the seller backed out because I couldn't come up with the money in time. I cried for 2 straight days. Mom said she tried to talk to Dad, but that he'd been tight with money lately. I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my mother, and when she later told me that she'd borrowed from her personal savings to help me with closing costs, around $5,000, I thanked her 1,000 times. I even wrote her a thank you card. Looking back now, I see the irony. She must have read that card, smiling to herself, knowing she was hiding something much, much bigger. Things between my parents had always been complicated. They argued a lot, especially about money. Dad was careful, almost paranoid about finances. Mom, she loved the finer things. She'd say things like, "We work too hard not to enjoy life, Robert," whenever Dad refused to go on expensive vacations. Their fights used to echo through the house when I was a kid. It was always about credit card bills, shopping, or some investment Mom made without telling Dad. So when I grew up, I made myself a promise. I'd never depend on anyone financially. I'd build my own life, my own home, my own peace, and for a while, I thought I had. Then came that dinner. It was a Sunday evening. We hadn't done family dinner in months, but Dad insisted because my brother Ethan was in town. Ethan, the golden boy. Married, successful, 2 kids, and somehow still Mom's favorite. He sat across from me, scrolling through his phone while my mom served roast chicken and mashed potatoes. Everything felt normal. The fake smiles, the small talk, the smell of Dad's favorite cologne filling the air. Then Dad looked at me and said the words that shattered it all. "So, Sandra, did the down payment help? When I said, "What down payment?" Mom dropped her fork. It hit the plate with a sharp clang that echoed through the dining room. Dad turned to her, eyes narrowing. Linda, don't tell me you didn't give her the money. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I could see her hands trembling. Ethan looked up from his phone, confused. Wait, what money? He asked. Dad pushed back his chair slowly. The $40,000 I transferred to your mother last June, for Sandra's house. I thought she already told you. Silence. Every eye turned to Mom. Her lips parted, barely. Robert, I was going to explain. My throat tightened. Explain what, Mom? She didn't look at me. She just stared down at her plate, blinking fast like she was trying to hold back tears. Dad's voice shook with anger now. Linda, where's the money? That's when Mom finally looked up, and what I saw in her eyes made my skin crawl. It wasn't guilt. It wasn't sadness. It was fear. And in that moment, I knew this was only the beginning, because whatever Mom did with that money, it wasn't just about the down payment. It was something darker. Something that could destroy us all. Dad's voice broke the silence first. Linda, he said, each word sharp and careful. Where's the money? Mom's hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. She didn't drink it. She just held it, like it could somehow protect her. Robert, please, she whispered. Not here. Not in front of the kids? Kids? Dad snapped. Sandra is 35. Ethan's almost 40. I think they can handle the truth. Ethan shifted in his seat, his eyes darting between our parents. Mom, what's going on? Mom's eyes glistened. I didn't spend it on myself. The words came out small, shaky. I leaned forward. Then where is it? She looked down, twisting her napkin into a knot. I was helping someone, she said finally. Someone who needed it more. Dad's hand slammed the table. The glasses rattled. Who, Linda? Who could possibly need $40,000 more than your own daughter? Tears spilled down her cheeks. It was your sister. The air went still. Dad blinked. My... what? Margaret, Mom said softly. She called me last year. She was desperate, Robert. Her husband lost his job, their house was in foreclosure. She begged me not to tell you, she was ashamed. I couldn't just let her lose everything. Dad's face went from disbelief to fury in seconds. His voice thundered. You gave her $40,000? Without telling me? That was Sandra's future, her home. I sat frozen, my breath caught in my chest. My Aunt Margaret, the one who stopped talking to Dad after Grandma's will dispute. The one we hadn't seen in years, I barely remembered her. And now, apparently, she had my house money. Mom, I said quietly, my voice cracking. You let me cry over losing that house. You watched me struggle, sell things, skip meals. And you said nothing? She reached for my hand, but I pulled it away. I wanted to tell you, she said through tears. But your father, he wouldn't have understood. He never forgave Margaret for what she did with Grandma's estate. I thought I could help her quietly, and she promised to pay me back. Dad let out a bitter laugh. Pay you back? Linda, Margaret hasn't paid anyone back in her life. Robert! Mom snapped suddenly, her tone sharp now. You don't understand what it's like to watch someone drown and do nothing. I couldn't just ignore her. And what about watching your daughter drown? Dad shot back. You ignored that just fine. The table fell silent again. The ticking clock on the wall suddenly sounded too loud. Ethan cleared his throat, trying to calm things down. Look, maybe Aunt Margaret just needs time to return the money. Mom said she'll pay her back, right? Mom hesitated. And that hesitation said everything. Dad leaned forward. Linda, has she paid anything back? Mom shook her head slowly. Dad closed his eyes and pressed his fingers against his temple. Unbelievable. Dad, I whispered, when did you send her the money? He sighed. June 15th. I wired it directly to your mother's account. I even told her to move it to yours that same week. My stomach twisted. June 15th. That was the week I told Mom I lost the house. She had the money in her account while I cried to her on the phone. She'd comforted me with lies. After dinner, nobody said a word. Ethan left early, muttering something about checking on his kids. Dad stormed into his office, slamming the door behind him, and I just sat there, staring at Mom across the kitchen table. She looked smaller somehow. Her shoulders slumped, her face tired and lined. Mom? I said softly. Why didn't you just tell me? I could have forgiven you, her lips trembled, because I thought I could fix it before anyone found out. I really did. By doing what? She hesitated. Then, in a whisper so faint I almost missed it, she said, by taking a loan. My heart stopped. What loan? She avoided my eyes. A private one. I didn't want your father to see it. I thought I could repay what I gave Margaret and then replace the money before you or your father ever knew. I felt cold. Mom, how much did you borrow? She swallowed hard. 50,000. My jaw dropped. From who? That's when she finally looked at me, and I saw pure fear. I can't tell you, she whispered. It's not safe. Not safe, I repeated. What are you talking about? She reached across the table and grabbed my hand, her voice trembling. Sandra, please. Just trust me. Don't ask questions. I'll fix this. But I could see it in her eyes she was lying again. I didn't sleep that night. I could hear my parents arguing in the next room. Dad's voice was hoarse, furious. Mom's broken and begging. At one point, I heard Dad shout, "You could have ruined us." Then the sound of something crashing. I wanted to walk away, to pack a bag and drive back to Austin. But something inside me wouldn't let me. I needed to know what Mom had gotten herself into. The next morning, she was gone. Her car was missing from the driveway. Her phone turned off. And on the kitchen counter was a note. It read, "I'm going to fix everything. Please don't come looking for me." I stared at it for a long time, my heart pounding. Dad walked in moments later, still in his pajamas. His face drained of color when he saw the note. "Robert," I said, holding it out with shaking hands. "She's gone." He took the paper and read it silently. Then he whispered something that sent chills through me. "She's done this before." Dad's words hit me like a punch to the chest. I stared at him, my throat dry, my heart thundering against my ribs. "What do you mean?" I whispered. "What's she done before?" He sank into the nearest chair, his face pale, his hands trembling slightly as he ran them through his thinning hair. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and tired. "Your mother," he said slowly, "has always had a way of hiding things from me, from everyone." I didn't say a word. I just waited. "She's always been good at making her problems disappear before anyone notices," he went on. "But sometimes, the way she fixes things causes more damage than what she's trying to hide." I felt my chest tighten. "Dad, what kind of damage?" He sighed, his eyes heavy with something between anger and regret. "Do you remember when you were 16 and your college fund disappeared for almost a year?" I nodded slowly. "You told me it was a bank error." He let out a bitter laugh. "It wasn't." The room went quiet again. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the sound of my own breathing. "What happened?" I asked softly. He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw tears in my father's eyes. "Your mother took the money," he said. "She said she was helping a friend who was being evicted. I didn't find out until months later. By then, the money was gone. My hands went cold. She stole my college fund? She said she was going to replace it, he whispered. And she did eventually. I covered the rest. But she promised me it was the last time she'd ever lie to me about money. He looked down at the note still lying on the counter. I should have known better. I couldn't breathe. Every image I'd ever had of my mother, warm, caring, dependable, started to crack like glass. She wasn't just impulsive. She was reckless, desperate, and this time, she was in deeper than ever. Hours passed with no word from her. By noon, Dad had called every number he could think of, her friends, her sister in Ohio, even Aunt Margaret. No one had seen her. Margaret didn't even pick up. I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone, scrolling through old texts from Mom, little messages that suddenly felt like clues to something I'd missed. Don't worry, honey. Everything will work out. Sometimes we just have to make hard choices for the people we love. I'll always take care of you, no matter what. At the time, they sounded comforting. Now they sounded like confessions. That evening, I went to her room. It felt eerie, like she'd vanished mid-breath. Her perfume still hung in the air, and her favorite scarf was draped over the chair. But what caught my eye was the drawer that wasn't fully closed. Inside were bills, unopened envelopes, and beneath them, a small blue notebook. It had my name written on the front in her handwriting. Sandra. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside were pages of numbers, names, and dates. At first, I thought it was just her usual budgeting notes. But then I saw a name I didn't recognize. Tommy, $5,000 paid. $45,000 left. My stomach dropped. The next page said, met him at the diner. Promised next payment soon. Sandra must not find out. I felt my hands shake as I flipped through the notebook. Faster and faster. There were dozens of entries. Small. Payments made to someone named Tommy. It looked like she'd been paying him off in secret for almost a year, and the dates matched up with when she told me she was helping. Margaret. My chest tightened. Who was Tommy? And why was my mother paying him so much money? I ran downstairs, notebook in hand. Dad looked up, exhausted, his phone still pressed to his ear. She didn't go to Margaret's, he said. Her sister just confirmed. She hasn't heard from your mother in months. Dad, I said, placing the notebook on the table, you need to see this. He frowned, took it, and started flipping through the pages. With every line, the color drained from his face. Finally, he whispered, Oh my God, who is Tommy? I asked. He looked at me, and for a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, very quietly, he said, Tommy Jenkins. The name meant nothing to me, but the look in Dad's eyes made my stomach twist. Who is he? I pressed. Dad leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He's a man from our past, Sandra. A man your mother promised she'd never see again. I froze. What do you mean? He took a deep breath. 20 years ago, when you were just a teenager, your mother got caught in a money scheme. She didn't tell you. She told me she was investing in a small business opportunity. Turns out, it was a scam. Tommy Jenkins ran it. He disappeared with thousands of dollars, including some of ours. He paused, his voice cracking. But that's not the worst part. I felt chills creep up my arms. Then what is? He looked me dead in the eye. Your mother wasn't just one of his victims. She was his accomplice. The room spun. What? She said it was an accident, Dad said, his voice breaking. That she didn't know what he was doing. That she thought she was helping a friend start a company. But when the police got involved, her name came up. I paid lawyers, sold my car, and begged the authorities not to charge her. They didn't because Tommy disappeared. She swore she'd never have contact with him again. I could barely speak. So she's paying him now because he's back, Dad whispered. And he's blackmailing her. Tears blurred my vision. It all made sense now. The fear in her eyes, the loans, the secrecy. She didn't lose the money by mistake. She gave it away because someone was holding her past over her head. Dad, I said in a trembling voice, we have to find her. What if she's in danger? He nodded slowly, gripping the edge of the table. We will, he said. But Sandra, he stopped mid-sentence. His phone buzzed on the table. A new message. The sender. Unknown number. He opened it and his face went white. What is it? I asked, my voice shaking. He turned the phone around. It was a photo. Mom, sitting in a dark room, her hands tied behind her back. Tears streaming down her face. And underneath, a message. If you want her back, bring the money. Don't call the cops. Dad's hands shook as he held the phone. I could hear his breathing quicken, shallow, panicked, the sound of a man whose world was collapsing. I snatched the phone from his hand and stared at the message again. Mom. Her face streaked with tears. Her wrists bound with duct tape. My heart slammed against my ribs. Dad, I whispered. What do we do? He was silent for a long time. Then, with trembling hands, he reached for his car keys. We find her, he said. But we don't call the police. Not yet. I wanted to scream, to demand why we wouldn't call for help, but the look in his eyes stopped me. It was the look of a man who'd already lost too much. We drove for almost 2 hours, guided by a second message from the same number. Old warehouse. Both in Bramble. Midnight. The road was empty, the sky heavy with storm clouds. I sat in the passenger seat, staring at my mother's face in that photo. The image burned into my mind. How could she have fallen so far? All her life she'd taught me to be strong, to be honest, to do the right thing. And yet, behind those lessons, she'd been hiding lies big enough to destroy us all. Dad's hands clenched around the steering wheel. I should have told you sooner, he muttered. About Tommy, about what your mother did back then. I shook my head. You were trying to protect me. He looked straight ahead, his voice low. And maybe that's why we ended up here, because I kept protecting her, even when she didn't deserve it. Rain began to fall, tapping against the windshield like restless fingers. By the time we reached the warehouse, midnight had swallowed the sky. The place looked abandoned, broken windows, rusted metal, and the faint sound of dripping water echoing inside. Dad parked the car a block away. Stay here, he said. Absolutely not, I snapped. She's my mother, Dad, he didn't argue. Maybe he knew it was useless. We moved quietly, the gravel crunching under our feet. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might echo off the walls. The big metal door creaked when Dad pushed it open. Inside was darkness. And then, a voice. Well, the family reunion. My breath hitched. A man stepped out of the shadows. Tall, broad, with a scar running down the side of his face. Tommy Jenkins, and behind him, my mother. Her face bruised, her eyes wide with fear. Robert, she whispered weakly. Sandra, let her go, Dad said, his voice firm but shaking. Tommy smirked. Relax, old man. I just want what's mine. $40,000? Plus interest, I spat. You're the one who scammed her. Tommy's grin faded. Scammed? No, sweetheart. Your mother was my partner. She knew exactly what we were doing. She only cried victim when things went bad. I looked at Mom, horrified. Is that true? Her lip trembled. Tears pooled in her eyes. Not at first, she whispered. I thought it was real, Sandra. A business deal. But when I found out it wasn't, I tried to pull out. He threatened to expose me. Dad clenched his fists. You let this man control you for 20 years? Tommy chuckled darkly. Control? She came back to me, Robert. She needed money again, remember? She called me. I didn't go looking for her. I froze. Mom, is that true? She sobbed, shaking her head. I didn't know what else to do. I thought I could fix everything before you found out. I just wanted to make it right. Tommy pulled a gun from his waistband, his voice calm and chilling. You want to make it right? Pay me. Then you can all go back to pretending to be a happy little family. Dad reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope, thick with cash. He tossed it on the ground. Take it. It's all there. Tommy crouched down, flipping through the bills. Good, he said. We're done here. But then he looked up, grinning. Except one problem. She called the cops this morning. What? I gasped. Tommy turned the gun toward Mom. I told you not to, Linda. Dad moved instinctively, stepping in front of her. Don't you dare! The gunshot shattered the night. The sound echoed through the warehouse, deafening and final. I screamed as Dad collapsed to the ground, clutching his chest. Dad! I cried, dropping beside him. His blood soaked through my hands, warm and fast. Mom screamed too, breaking free from the rope around her wrists. She lunged at Tommy, hitting him with all the strength she had left. Another gunshot. Then another, and then silence. When the police finally arrived, I was sitting on the floor, my father's head in my lap, my mother's body a few feet away, her hand outstretched toward me, as if she'd been reaching for forgiveness. Tommy lay motionless, the gun beside him. The flashing red and blue lights painted everything in chaos. Officers shouted. Paramedics rushed in. But I didn't hear any of it. All I could hear was Dad's voice from earlier that night, echoing in my head, because I kept protecting her, even when she didn't deserve it. 3 weeks later, I stood alone in front of 2 graves. The sky was gray. The air smelled like rain. I placed a white rose on Mom's tombstone, my hands trembling. I wanted to hate you, I whispered. But I can't. You were scared and you made bad choices. But you were still my mom. Then I turned to Dad's grave. You deserved better. You loved her too much to see how much she was breaking. Tears streamed down my face. For years, I thought love meant trust. But now, I understood something much harder. Love without honesty isn't love at all. It's a slow death dressed as devotion. If this story touched your heart or made you think about the power of truth, please don't scroll away. Like, share, and subscribe for more emotional love and betrayal stories that stay with you long after the screen goes dark. Sometimes, the people we trust most are the ones who hurt us deepest. But healing begins when the truth finally comes out. Until next time, bye for now.